as the event progresses. But at this point, we'd like to go to indefatigable Vice Chancellor, the man with the Midas touch, the man who keeps dreaming about Edo State University. And I think that until he exhausts his wit end, there will continue to be new things here. Please make welcome Engineer Professor Emmanuel Aluyo, Vice Chancellor, Edo State University, Uzairue.
His Excellency, Mr. Godwin Nogagase Obaseki, Executive Governor of Edo State and visitor to Edo University, Edo State University, ably represented by the Commissioner for Education, Dr. Joan Uzairue, other members of the Edo State Executive Council, members of the Edo State House of Assembly, the chairman of today's occasion, Engineer Alex Ogedengbe, President of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering, our guest lecturer, Professor Bakri Usman Said, principal officers of Edo State University, Uzairue, vice chancellors, rectors, distinguished invitees, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the third convocation lecture of Edo State University, Uzairue. Like the previous convocation lectures, this third convocation lecture features very important personalities. Among these important personalities is the chairman of today's occasion, in the person of Engineer Alex Ogedengbe. Engineer Alex Ogedengbe is the President, Nigeria Academy of Engineering. The Academy, which is the supreme body of engineering in Nigeria, is established for the promotion of excellence in engineering training and practice in Nigeria in order to ensure the nation's technological growth. Being an engineer myself, I was fully inducted into the Academy earlier this year, and I thank our able president, Engineer Alex Ogedengbe, for making that possible. I'm also using this opportunity to welcome our special guests of honor for today's occasion in the person of the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Ihanire. We are watching out for when he joins us. Our Honorable Minister of Health is a fine gentleman who, through his wealth of experience in the field of medicine, was able to manage the menace of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. The fact that the pandemic did not go out of hand as envisaged by some personalities is as a result of the dogged effort and dexterity of the Honorable Minister and his team. Of particular importance is the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic came at a time when the nation was in contention with many other infectious diseases such as Lassa fever. Knowing that health is wealth and that properly trained medical personnel will guarantee a healthy society, we at Edo State University, Uzairue have gone extra miles to make sure our medical students have the best training that is available for any medical professional in the world. Part of our effort to make this happen is in our selection process in the employment of academic staff. I'm proud to say that our academic staff are choosing from the pool of the best available academics in Nigeria. With the support of Edo State government, the university prides itself as a world-class university because of its state-of-the-art facilities and ultra-modern laboratories for medical science researches and practicals. The university's anatomy table is one of the best in the world. the only in Nigeria as we speak. Our medical program was successful in its first and second accreditation visits of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. The university is expecting the third visit of the council, and with the level of facilities in our medical college, I'm confident that the third accreditation visit will also be successful. Our nursing and medical laboratory science programs have been fully accredited by the relevant agencies. The guest speaker for the third convocation lecture is Professor Bakri Osman Said. He's a seasoned academic and a very important figure among the African universities community. He's the president of the Association of African Universities. The Association of African Universities is an umbrella body of African universities of world-class standard. As part of the recognition of the impact of the Edo State University Uzairue on the tertiary educational sector in Nigeria and in Africa, the Association of African Universities deemed it fit to admit Edo State University into its full fold as a member of the association. Edo State University Uzairue was admitted into full membership of the association this year and has also been admitted into the full membership of the International Association of Universities. Knowing the caliber of person whom Professor Bakri Usman Said is, we are glad that he accepted to be the speaker of this year's lecture. The topic for the lecture, which is entitled "The Role of African Universities in the Development of the African States," is apt and promises to be interesting, and I urge everyone to take their time to enjoy it. I'm using this opportunity to thank the Edo State government for the vision of establishing a university that will be the center of excellence and for giving the university the base from where it has begun to serve. Without this singular opportunity, the university would not have been the only university in Nigeria that was in its full academic session during the COVID-19 lockdown as a result of the deployment of its Canvas learning management system. Here, students learn at the confines of their homes and in the presence of their parents. Now, the result of the deployment of the technology has paid off. As of today, Edo State University has finished its second semester for the 2020-2021 academic session and has resumed for a new session. The graduating sets of the 2020-2021 academic session have been dispatched for National Youth Service, and their certificates are ready and will be given to them immediately after the convocation ceremony on Thursday, 4th November 2021, which is tomorrow. In Edo State University Uzairue, the quality of our graduates is assured because we emphasize student-centered learning. Student-centered learning is a method of teaching where the focus is on how best to make the student learn by emphasizing on the skills and practices that enable lifelong learning and guarantees independent problem solving. This is part of the reason we have introduced the Canvas learning management system. Through this system, learning is made easy. The student can always go back to what has been learned, and parents can always monitor the academic progress of their wards. It's our focus in Edo State University Uzairue has always been on quality and standard. The university will be honoring 3 wonderful Nigerians who have done exceptionally well in their careers by conferring honorary doctorate degrees on them. This is to show them as examples to not just our students as figures to emulate, but to the world. 2 among these recipients will be available to receive the award this year, while 1 who, though accepted the award will be available next year. These are honors well deserved, and I urge them to be worthy ambassadors of Edo State University Uzairue. Once again, I welcome everyone who has found time to attend the Edo State University Uzairue's third convocation lecture. Thank you and enjoy the lecture.
We want to thank the Vice Chancellor for that very warm welcome address. And I'm sure that with that address, the tone for this lecture is set. However, before we go to the lecture proper, we will take the chairman's comments, which we're not taking immediately. We will take those chairman's remarks as soon as we take you through a video of the life and times of Edo State University. And so the next item on this program is a video tour of our university. Please sit back and enjoy this video tour. Thank you.
Dreams, they say, sometimes come true. This is a situation where Edo State University, Uzairue, formerly Edo University, Iyamo. From inception, the university has made it a point of duty to ensure that she stands out amongst her peers in Nigeria while pursuing a global status. With world-class facilities and an array of well-trained and qualified faculty members, the story of the university has been that of success, and this is one of the reasons many parents have chosen the Edo State University as their institution of choice. The university's environment is deliberately planned to make learning a pleasurable thing to do. From the preserved green environment to the temperature-controlled classrooms, well-equipped laboratories and studios, you can but hold your breath if you are a first-time visitor to this ivory tower. The world-standard hostels, which accommodate all our students, are carefully designed to ensure that the students do not have any reason to miss their homes when they are in school. Visitors are marveled at our road networks, which is a major attraction that leads our students to our modern sports complex where they have to balance up the day's activities with some play. Don't you wish your children were here to enjoy these at an affordable fee? Sure they can, and they are welcome.
Thank you very much. That was a brief tour of our university, Edo State University, Uzairue. We'd like to make welcome a few people that have logged in while this event had started running, and to ask that they relax and enjoy the afternoon with us. We want to make welcome Dr. and Mrs. Isoke Ugboro, former registrar of this university. Welcome, Madam Registrar. We'd like to also make welcome Wing Commander I.K. Ifeora, representing Commander 107 Air Maritime Group, Benin. Please welcome to this event. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we will be moving over to the chairman of this ceremony, Engineer Alex Ogedegbe, gentleman par excellence, who will give his brief address before we go on to the citation of the lecturer and the lecture proper. Mr. Chairman, sir, you now have the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Marcel, for welcoming me onto this podium now. I was a little bit teased by the last tour of the campus. I wish I was there instead of sitting in my little office here trying to make this address. In any case, I'm joining everybody on this webinar. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State and visitor to the university, Governor Baseki, who's also a personal friend, represented by his Commission of Health, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Emmanuel Aluyo, a colleague in the business of engineering, the special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Ehanire, the guest speaker, Professor Bakri Osman Said, who you will hear a lot about in the next few minutes, the graduating students, their parents, relatives, and friends, and other guests. It is a great honor, much than you can imagine, for me to welcome all of you to this lecture, marking the third convocation of Edo State University. On such an occasion of celebrations, of achievement, culminating in years of concentrated efforts in rigorous studies and examinations, writing papers, reports, and theses, are marked by such lectures with profound interest. And of course, a lecturer of high scholastic achievements and insights. I'm confident Professor Bakri Osman Said will do justice to this topic, so I don't have to say anything. But please permit me to make some important and timely observations on this occasion. We should be continuously mindful of very important events and situations happening around us as the world at large, and that we are being impacted on the lives and well-being of every citizen of Nigeria and the world communities. I'm referring to the issues and challenges of climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. These challenges are real and need all the attention, awareness, contributions from individuals, communities, and nations to overcome their negative effects. Each of us here has a minimum role in educating our proverbial neighbors. These negative effects have come a common denominator. For example, in the last 22 months, massive loss of lives, over 5 million people so far and counting, have occurred to COVID-19 and over 2 million to climate change effects. Jobs with livelihood losses and health challenges and difficulties around the world have increased dramatically. Therefore, by paying maximum attention to experts who are tirelessly seeking and proposing solutions and following their professional advice in our activities at home or workplaces, we can greatly help ourselves and the future of humanity. I made my comments entirely brief so that people will remember how important they are, and also in order for us to keep to the time schedule of this program. I thank you all for your attention, and especially my colleague and friend, Professor Emmanuel Aluyo. Thank you very much.
That applaud was good. That applaud was good, but not good enough for our distinguished president of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering and the chairman of this event. Please Let's applaud him properly. Growing up in my myopic small life, as it was, I thought that engineers were confined to spanners and numbers and bricks, mortars, irons, and things like that. But when you hear the president of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering speak so eloquently, so fluently, as if he thought the Queen of England how to speak English, then you'll be marveled. Our chairman, sir, would like to salute your astuteness and the show and mastery of the fact that you are one of those few Nigerians who had proper training, proper education, when education meant everything to everybody. Thank you for your comments, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
At this point, we would like to unveil the big masquerade. The masquerade is not alien to Africans because every now and then you want to see the performance of a masquerade so you can learn new dance steps. And we're surely going to learn a few new dance steps today. I'd like to do a very brief citation on a man whose parts are very long and whom a citation in 1 hour will be inadequate. But we will try to keep the citation as brief as possible so that you can have a tip of the iceberg, because the taste of the pudding, they say, is in the eating. And so I'd like to present to you this august gathering, our guest speaker, our guest lecturer for today. He is Professor Bakri Osman Said, who was born on September 21st in the year of our Lord 1951 at Marwi in Sudan. Professor Bakri Osman Said is the son, and I dare say the proud son, of Usman Said and Fatima Elgid Abraman. Professor Bakri Said is married to Imam Mohammed Atabani, and they are blessed with children. Professor Usman Said enjoys traveling, reading, and playing football. So don't be surprised when he comments in the process of this lecture that one of his greatest pains today is that he's not able to travel to Nigeria, particularly to Edo State University, to give this lecture because he loves to travel. Professor Bakri Usman Said obtained a bachelor's degree in medicine and surgery from the University of Khartoum. He obtained a PhD from the University of Leeds in the UK and a Doctor of Medicine from the University of Newcastle upon Tyne. He has a fellowship of the Royal College of Pathologists and a fellowship of the Royal College of Physicians, London, UK. Professor Bakri Said is currently the president of the Sudan International University and president of the Association of African Universities. He is indeed the UNESCO chair in the school health education. Can we applaud this very gentleman? Professor Said Usman is an accomplished gentleman. You know, in the field of medicine, where he comes from, when you become a super consultant, the title doctor is dropped for Mr. And so if I call Professor Bakri Said Usman, Mr. Bakri Said Usman, you know in the context in which I've referred to him as Mr. So Mr. Bakri Usman Said, wonderful pathologist, wonderful physician, I welcome you to Edo State University, Uzairue.
Thank you.
Professor Bakri was the founding dean of the St. George's International Medical School, which is a partnership between St. George's University and Northumbria University in Newcastle upon Tyne. He started his career as a lecturer at the University of Khartoum and then worked for many years as an academic and medical consultant for the University of Leicester, University of Newcastle upon Tyne, and the University of London, UCL. He has been a visiting professor at the University of Northumbria in Newcastle and St. George's University in Grenada, where he's a consultant to the Caribbean Reference Laboratory. He has been involved with many higher education and training bodies in the UK and in many other countries of the world. In Sudan, his home country, he contributed significantly and continues to contribute to the development of higher education as a chair or member of important bodies and committees, including the Committee for Revising the Higher Education Act, the Committee for the Evaluation of Research Proposals, Ministry of Higher Education, Sudan, and the Committee for Regulation of Private Higher Education. Professor Bakri was involved in conflict resolution and peace promotion in Africa through his voluntary appointment as special advisor to United Nations University for Peace. He was a member of the African team led by Ambassador Mohamed Salman, former Foreign Minister of Algeria, and Kofi Annan's envoy to Africa. He participated in the South Sudan peace talks, which resulted in the amicable and peaceful separation of South Sudan. I dare say that even today, he's still involved in the struggle, trying to ensure that Sudan maintains peace and that both nations live as brothers that they are. He was a member of the President Carter's initiative for North-South Sudan Popular Reconciliation and co-chairman of the Vienna Peace Initiative, Sudan for Cross-Border Communities. He was counterpart to Dr. Falsbank, former Defense Minister of Australia. He has been a long-time advocate of environmental practice, environmental protection, and food and safety and security. He has served as a member of the National Biosafety Council in Sudan and as chairman of the technical committee of the council. He raised research funds from most of the major international funding bodies, including USAID, NTH, WHO, European Union, TDR, Wellcome Trust, and the British Medical Council. Professor Bakri Osman Said is extensively published in very distinguished peer-reviewed journals, in addition to numerous articles in Sudan, and has trained many postgraduate students, including many PhDs and MDs. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, therefore, this wonderful scholar, this administrator par excellence, this peace seeker, this peace bringer, this father of children, this husband of a beautiful wife, this proud son of Sudan. Join me in making welcome our guest speaker today, who will be speaking on the topic, the role of African universities in the development of African states. There can be no better person to charge with this responsibility than Professor Bakri Osman Said. Please make welcome Professor Bakri Osman Said to the lecture podium. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you excuse me for not remembering the names of all the dignitaries with us this afternoon. I would like to greet all distinguished guests, all protocols observed. I feel really honored and privileged to have the opportunity to share this very important occasion with this distinguished audience in this esteemed institute. I'm very grateful to Professor Emmanuel Alayor, the Vice Chancellor of Edo State University, and for the whole community of Edo State University for inviting me to deliver a lecture on this very important topic. I would like to greet the Chancellor, all the dignitaries, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, faculty, graduating students, administrators, all the workers at the university. I extend my heartfelt congratulations to the 2021 graduates for their remarkable achievements, and congratulations to their loved ones who contributed to their success. This is a big topic, and I'll have to be very selective. The causes of underdevelopment in Africa are many. And quite often, people think of one or two main factors. One of my favorite thinkers, Professor Francis Fukuyama, the American political scientist, thinks that the weak states in Africa is the main cause of underdevelopment. Corruption is always cited by a lot of people. Sometimes one looks at countries like Italy, Portugal, and Greece, where there is a great deal of corruption, but those countries have still succeeded to modernize and to achieve very good standards of living and services to the citizens. And it makes you wonder, is it just the order of magnitude of corruption in Africa, or is it the type of corruption, or the fact that it permeates all levels of society? And then ethnic conflicts, it did not prevent a country like Switzerland from being what it is. So is it because our elite, African elite, use ethnic differences for their own personal agenda? I'm not going to talk further about these issues. Now, when people talk about development, they talk about different aspects of development: sustainable development, unsustainable development, political development, economic development. Sustainable development is defined very simply as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. Education for sustainable development was divided years back by UNESCO as a dynamic concept that encompasses a new vision of education that seeks to empower people of all ages to assume responsibility for creating and enjoying a sustainable future, and is aimed at integrating the principles, values, and practices of sustainable development into all aspects of education and learning. On the other hand, higher education for sustainable development in Africa is the mainstreaming of education for sustainable development in higher institutions of learning in Africa. In 2005, the United Nations General Assembly designated the decade 2005 to 2014 as the UN Decade on ESD, Education for Sustainable Development. I'm not going to talk about what really did we achieve in that decade, but we'll touch on some of the issues throughout the lecture. Economic growth is measured as per capita GDP. This measure has been criticized as it only looks at money. it doesn't take into consideration other measures of human well-being. It doesn't reflect the distribution of wealth, opportunity, health, etc. But its use has persisted because it is a straightforward measure and it's well-defined. Development means many things. So people talk about pillars or dimensions of development. It's a very complex phenomenon. Dimensions, probably the simplest definition is economic, political, and social dimensions that interact in complex ways. Some authors subdivide these dimensions into further divisions or use different categories like environmental, ideological, cultural, and so on. Francis Fukuyama insists on dividing the political dimension into three pillars of political development: the state, strong state, the rule of law, and accountability. And of course, we need always to remember these factors because education is not going to achieve sustainable development by itself. It has to work within a certain environment. I just mentioned briefly, like China's development, economic development occurred at a time when the Chinese government abandoned the orthodox principles of communism and liberalized the economy. So the Chinese who returned from Silicon Valley and those places could work in an environment where there is protection of property rights, there is competition, there are laws protecting this competition, and so on. The dimensions of development can change independently, but they're often linked together in a number of ways. So if you look at change in economic growth, it has to be understood in the context of other dimensions of development. Conflict, for example, correlates very heavily with poverty and is often both a cause and result of poverty. Authors studying the phenomenon of conflict point to weak governments and poor institutions as fundamental cause of both conflict and poverty. I want to give an example from 1800 England, which brings many of the dimensions of development together. England, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, witnessed a sudden burst of economic growth after the year 1800. Describing this, again, quoted in the book Political Order and Political Decay by Francis Fukuyama, quote, "The Industrial Revolution has been preceded by a commercial revolution starting in the 6th century that vastly expanded the volume of trade both within Europe and across the Atlantic. Expansion, in turn, was driven by a host of political and institutional factors: the establishment of secure property rights, the rise of modern states, the invention of double-entry bookkeeping and the modern corporation, and new technologies of communication and transportation. The Industrial Revolution in turn rested on the systematic application of the scientific method and its incorporation into an institutional structure of universities and research organizations, which could then be translated into technical innovations." End of quote. This presentation was based on two premises. Number one, economic development in sub-Saharan Africa has been very cyclical because there were periods of good economic development and sporadic, and overall has lagged behind the rest of the world. Two, The existing structures of African universities and education programs are not responsive to the problems of sustainable development facing the continent. The impact of higher education on sustainable development in Africa is still very low. Just a few words about the first assumption. After independence, economic growth, social transformation took place, but that probably lasted for a couple of decades and was very quickly wiped out and poverty intensified. This contrasts sharply with the rest of the developing world, where per capita income more than doubled in some of these most successful countries and increased fourfold and sometimes more in others. If we look at the case of Nigeria, a very important country from which Africa can draw a lot of lessons, and it is unfair probably to compare Nigeria to the high flyers of the Asian tigers, but compare it to Indonesia, which has similarities to Nigeria. It's a large population, 233 million in the year 2010, ethnically diverse oil-producing country. In 1960, Indonesia's per capita income was only 60% of Nigeria's. By 2010, it was 118% higher. In that period, Nigeria made $400 billion. How much of that money was plowed back into industry or into education compared to Indonesia? So overall, Africa remains the least developed region of the world. Right. At political independence, the mass of African population naturally looked for the post-colonial administrations to improve their most pressing problems, which have been and still those of underdevelopment: poverty, ignorance, disease, low production, unemployment, lack of decent housing, and etc. The post-colonial administrations looked for education, especially higher education, to help them catch up with the developed world and respond to the high expectations of their populations. Universities were seen as a principal instrument for national development, mainly through production of what is called human capital, or qualified human resources, to run the administration and the professions in the newly independent countries, to replace the professionals who left with independence. So in the run-up to independence or shortly afterwards, at least one university was established in most African countries where there was none. Hopes that with independence, the universities would help to solve these problems have been largely disappointed. The mass of the people saw little visible improvement in the quality of their lives, and the impact of the universities on efforts to solve their problems have not been great. The African government attitudes towards higher education has been variable. So it was natural for Africans to look at the international trends in development to try to learn some lessons. But that effort by most governments has just been looking at some aspects of best practice and try to borrow it and apply it within the African context. Governments themselves were very often distracted by power struggles and competing needs, and they do not always consider higher education a priority for development, especially in the 80s and 90s when the World Bank was actually advocating concentrating efforts on primary education. The universities, on the other hand, were accused by the government in not being capable of delivering solutions to problems of sustainable development. And the universities continue to be plagued by underfunding and other internal and external impediments. Broadly speaking, there is a big body of literature on higher education and economic development grown over the years. However, there is still a lot of need for research. A groundbreaking paper and followed by a book edited by Nico Cloyd from South Africa and others summarize that little work has been done which focuses on the characteristics and dynamics of the relationship between higher education and development, or on the contextual and institutional factors which facilitate or inhibit these relationships. Neither has there been much research within the African context, nor does that take both national and institutional factors into account. The experience of some developing countries in Asia and Latin America has shown that the speed at which developing countries are able to utilize and modify technology developed mainly in high-income countries will determine whether they will be able to realize a more rapid transition to higher levels of development and standards of living. In this way, some developing countries and emerging economies have speeded up the pace of development by investing in higher education. However, the study of those experiences proves that there is no one-size-fits-all model of development. If you look at two Asian giants, China and India, we'll note that they did not follow the same development path. Other Asian tigers have different stories about the path to development. So we really need to study those experiments. I will now introduce the concept of what is being called the development university. At the time of independence, the higher education system in most African countries was limited to a single national university. So you cannot talk about really higher education. And that university was usually a traditional university like a British or American university, which is a self-governing institution with a good deal of institutional autonomy and academic freedom, and usually governed by scholars. In July 1972, the Association of African Universities held a workshop in Accra, which focused on the role of the university in development. The Accra conference stated that all universities must be development universities. And since national development is primarily the responsibility of governments, workshop participants agreed that it was the responsibility of governments to steer universities in the development direction. The model of the development university gathered support over the years from many academics, ministers of education, and even the World Bank, after it changed its opinion and attitude towards higher education and its role in development. However, adopting the model of development and university was a deviation from the traditional model of the university. So it constitutes a huge challenge to African universities. There are always people who are comfortable with the traditional model, which they grew up with. Therefore, there is a need for a lot of development research, which should be a priority goal for African universities, to inform national development policies and to orient academic disciplines, research, and community services towards developmental issues. The other thing was the issue or the call for governments to steer universities in the direction of development. The original thinking was that since governments are responsible for development, they should play a role in steering universities towards contributing to development, and they should provide universities with the necessary funding and support to achieve this objective. However, in practice, not all government interference in higher education has been beneficial. It has been, in many instances, an excuse for ruling parties to try to control universities' programs and administrations and appoint vice chancellors and deans, sometimes people who lack credibility, and to academic and administrative positions. And this always had the potential of creating a sense of marginalization among others, and sometimes even triggered conflict and open hostilities within universities. In 2009, the Association of African Universities convened its general conference in Abuja. The title of that conference was Sustainable Development in Africa, the Role of Higher Education. The conference was declared open by His Excellency Alhaji Umaru Musa Yaradua, President of Nigeria at the time, who was represented by the Honorable Minister State for Education, Haji Aisha Jibril Duku. The President noted in his speech, which was read by the Minister, that improving education was an item on his administration's 7-point agenda, which was being vigorously pursued because of the conviction that development could be fostered and sustained through education. According to the President, the 7-point agenda, which focuses on power and energy, food security, wealth creation, transportation, land reform, security of lives and property, as well as on education, has the capacity to turn around the economy, making Nigeria one of the world's most leading economies by the year 2020. The conference produced the Abuja Declaration on Sustainable Development in Africa, the Role of Higher Education. The declaration made of numerous recommendations, but a major recommendation was to embark on a revision of the educational system to effectively achieve higher education for sustainable development in Africa. Despite the enthusiasm for the development university model and the rhetoric, there was a lack of clarity and agreement about the role of higher education in development at both national and university level. One of the reasons was the lack of a development model by the national governments. Although most of them show awareness of the importance of the university in the global context of the knowledge economy. Advent of globalization, the emergence of the knowledge economy, the explosion in science and technological advances have given rise to new challenges to governments and higher education systems. Governments have to increase their competitiveness to be able to compete in the global knowledge economy. This puts a burden on universities to produce new type of human capital with new relevant knowledge, competencies, and high skills, as well as do research, innovation, and technological development. Knowledge production, accumulation, transfer, and application have become major factors in socioeconomic development, are increasingly at the core of national development strategies for gaining competitive advantage in the global knowledge economy. But how are we doing in Africa? I'll try to say a few words about this later. Now, despite the wide support for the role of higher education in development, as I said, the tools are unclear. There seem to be two different types of tools we can use here. The direct of service rule or instrumentalist rule, as Nico Cloet and his colleagues called it. And this is a continuation of the traditional role of providing human capital and use of university expertise in addressing development problems. The other one, mainly through knowledge production, utilization, and dissemination. The Hirano study in South Africa used the World Economic Forum rating to classify the 8 African they studied and 3 international case studies into the 3 categories. The first one, the fact-driven countries, which is the first stage of development. Countries compete on their factor endowments, primarily unskilled labor and natural resources. Most African countries are in this category. The efficient-driven stage, and they only put South Africa and Mauritius in this category. And the third one is the innovation-driven stage, which is characteristic of the developed countries. So Okay. Virtually all African countries remain at the lower end of the Human Development Index at stage 1 of the development, where successful developing countries were all at stage 3. Now, how equipped are Africans for new knowledge production, which will help them developing through stage 2 into stage 3? Now, the Higher Education Research and Advocacy Network in Africa, the HIRANA project, reached a conclusion that the research in African universities they studied was not strong enough to enable them to make sustainable, comprehensive contribution to development via new knowledge production. They made an exception for the University of Cape Town. This was not a new finding. It has already been acknowledged by many organizations, including the World Bank and leading scholars, that African universities are lagging behind the rest of the world in knowledge production. I put here a long list of recommendations where people can actually try. I mean, this is not a recipe, it's not a prescription, it's more of a menu. Different African countries are at different stages of development. But the main thing here, they've got to be solidarity, cooperation, or even a pact between universities and other stakeholders, especially governments, if we are going to go forward. Second, we need to reevaluate higher education institutions, contract, and encourage universities to search for and identify the needs and aspirations of their societies. This is the way they can increase their capability to influence policy formulation at the national level and integrate all agencies of education towards a common goal of sustainable development. 3, we need to build sufficient expertise in the academic core, because if we assume these experts are going to play a role in solving developmental issues, they've got to be an added value for their effort. Otherwise, the government might dismiss universities are incapable of delivering solutions to development problems. Governance issues are extremely important. The way universities are run is very important for their well-being. And as Professor Leon Tickley from the University of Bristol put it, there is need for education system to move from so-called spider models of governance based on top-down centralized decision to starfish models based on developing bottom-up system of improvement. 5, fostering an increased quality of teaching and learning education for sustainable development. 6, a need to review the services offered by AAU. This is the responsibility of the AAU. I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about that. Increased funding of university programs tied to the role of universities in sustainable development and outcome of activities. An allocation of a fixed percentage of GDP has been advocated, but other sources of funding has to be explored. Adoption of outcome-based education, where we identify the skills and competencies required for the global knowledge economy and how can we achieve this by continuous and regular review of curricula. Revision of the incentive system to reward achievements in development. The greatest incentive for academics now is academic promotion, but with deteriorating economic circumstances, a lot of people prefer to go on teaching in private universities or doing consultancies and things like that, and they are left with little time for research. The last extremely important one is the role of universities in strengthening research capabilities and how can we have our universities producing new knowledge. One suggestion have been the research-led universities, where the primary focus is production of scientific knowledge. There are research universities all over the world. There are a minority among other institutions. There is very good discussion in Nico Polloyd's book about this. We don't have time to go into details. Creating a two-tier system education has its problems as well. But the other problem source is the centers of excellence. Some scholars have dismissed centers of excellence as a viable and credible source of new knowledge, but I just want to refer to the experiment which is running now, the World Bank Centers of Excellence in Central and Western Africa. I had the honor of being on one of the evaluation teams for the World Bank, and I took part in the evaluation of 5 or 6 centers of excellence in Nigeria, actually, alone. I was impressed by what I saw, and I think this experiment needs to be studied well. I think we can have some answers to some of our questions through studying the experiment of the World Bank Centers of Excellence in Africa. Just a few words on the AAU. The AAU is guided by a strategic plan. The current one covers the period 2021 to 2025. This one focuses on catalyzing higher education to significantly contribute to the African Union Agenda 2063 and Sustainable Development Goals, characterized by inclusive growth and sustainable development, good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, people-driven development, unleashing the potential of women and youth. The strategic plan is directly anchored in the AAU CESA, Continental Education Strategy for Africa 1625. In fact, the AAU, the African Union, has signed an MOU with the AAU, and we are the implementing agency for CESA 1625 Africa. I just finished my presentation by Nelson Mandela's strong statement: education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And I put a reservation: education by itself cannot solve the problems of sustainable development. Thank you for listening. Merci beaucoup. Shukran. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Professor. You have lived more to my expectation than I could imagine. I must interrupt all the protocols to come in and use my discretion as chairman to thank you very much. I want to also stress something that we have found at the Academy of Engineering, that in order to focus our efforts in the proper way, every organization must have a strategic plan that is well conceived. Every organization needs to sit down and take all the factors, its resources, its aspirations, its whatever, the factors that influence its operations into consideration, at least a few months of real brainstorming and coming up with a strategic plan, and then go to the second step of implementing those plans according to the the way in which the objectives have been defined. You have done an excellent job. I was taking notes at one time. I stopped because I wanted to really sink in and get what you're discussing. But this is really your recommendations. I would again recommend to be basis of a strategic plan for any organization, especially our universities. I wish our NUC would have a strategic plan like the AAU you're talking about, and because I am sure that there's nothing more that will focus the right directions for especially those who are keen and sincere about development in Africa. Thank you very much, Professor Bakrin Said. I really appreciate it. On behalf of my colleagues here, as chairman, I've taken over for a few minutes, and I will hand over back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's a problem with the quality of the voice. Is it only me or? The sound.
Can somebody help? Can somebody help with the voice?
Yeah, I think there is.
Thank you once more, Professor Said Osman. Now we want to take a few more recognitions before we go to the next item on our, before we take questions and answers, we'd like to give people a bit of a minute or two to prepare their questions so that we can take them. But while that is going on, we'd like to take a few recognitions. We want to welcome in a very special manner, Comrade Adams Oshomole, former governor of Edo State, founder and first visitor of Edo State University, Uzairue. Please make him welcome to this event. We'd like to also welcome to this event the acting vice chancellor of Afe Babalola University, Ado Ekiti, Professor E. Samaranda Olaride. Please make Professor Olaride welcome to this event. We'd like to also welcome to this event Professor A. Saligi, who has joined us to listen to this lecture. Thank you, Professor Saligi. We want to welcome also Engineer Felix Ebozeme, who represents the Minister of Works in the Council of Registered Engineers of Nigeria. Correct. Professor Ebozeme, I beg your pardon. Well, you are professor for the purpose of this business. Engineer Ebozeme, we welcome you to this event. We'd like to also welcome Professor Ileta of the Department of Chemical Engineering, University of Ilorin. Welcome to this event. We want to welcome also Engineer Professor York Becker. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name well, Beretugo. We welcome you to this event. We want to welcome our former bosser, Chris Ohani, to this event. We'd like to also welcome Mr. Augustus Adomagbo, representing Sterling Bank PLC, one of the organizations that has partnered with us. We'd like to welcome Professor Raf Adokwe, Department of Production Engineering, University of Benin. We want to welcome also Professor Nona Gino, who has also logged in to be with us. Engineer Stephen Akemu, we know you are here, we recognize your presence, and we welcome you. Engineer Jodo Onoflu, we have welcomed you here. Thank you for drilling continuously, and we know that Total is very happy with you. Distinguished gentlemen, there's no end to this recognition. At this point, we'd like to take some questions so that our guest speaker, Professor Bakri Ufanside, can respond. This will be the order in which we take these questions. You will raise your hand electronically, we will recognize you, and then ask you to raise a question. We would ask our guest speaker to kindly note the questions so that he can provide a holistic response to them after he has taken about 5 or so questions. Thank you. Now, we are ready to take questions. Just raise your hand electronically and we'll recognize you. Thank you. Okay.
Let's play one video now.
I can't see. I can send it with the link.
I see 2 persons, there's one and the one is there.
Who is this person? No, that's me. Kelani. All right. Mr. Kelani Tawa Khalid. I hope I pronounced your name well. You have raised your hand. Please go ahead with your question. Mr. Kelani Tawa Khalid. Okay. If it's not ready, we will take Professor Faborode, former Vice Chancellor, OAU. Professor Faborode. We seem to be having a little challenge, but we'll deal with that in a second. Where's the question? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Professor Faborode, I've seen your question.
Yes. So
Our guest, Dr. Faborode, question. Thanks to Professor Said for a very exciting lecture. I am concerned about the continued poor global ranking of African universities, which also reflects the sustained inability of our universities to apprehend the continent's underdevelopment, poverty, poor education and health facilities, poor infrastructure, massive youth unemployment, and worsening deindustrialization, to mention a few. And the question is, what is the vision and strategy of AAU under your leadership to intervene and revitalize our universities, at least a good number of them, for greater relevance to the needs of Africa while equally being globally competitive? Professor Said, I hope you got the question.
Well, thank you very much. What a question.
All right.
Yes,
Everything.
I mean, honestly, I sometimes look at universities in some African countries, including my own country, at this time, just in crisis and with deteriorating economic situations, and just hoping, universities hoping for survival. And this is why when I presented my recommendations, I said, this is not a prescription, or because a lot of people will look into that list and say, oh my goodness me, Africa is so unlucky because it has to address all the challenges of sustainable development all at once. And so, as I just mentioned, in the AAU, we have been advocating this development university since 1972. And our strategic plan 2021-2025 incorporates the continental strategic roadmap for sustainable development in Africa, which is the Africa we want, Agenda 2063, and the SDGs, because when the United Nations acknowledge the 2063 agenda as a roadmap for development in Africa in 2015, that's the year when they produced SDGs. They recommended actually merging SDGs into the 2063 agenda, because although there is a great deal of overlap, there are issues which are not dealt with sufficiently in one of either of the visions, or only dealt with marginally. So we consider our role in the AAU as a platform for debate and for exchange of knowledge and experiences on key issues related to sustainable development, guided by Agenda 2063, SDGs, and CESA, the Continental Strategy, Education Strategy for Africa, and incorporating other relevant initiatives. And the objective of this activity by the AAU is to help empowering universities to move towards addressing the issues of development. But a great deal of effort rests on the shoulders of university leadership and on the government, because if we cannot close the gap, the existing gap between higher education and decision makers, we have very little hope of maximizing the role of universities in achieving sustainable development. And this is why I called for an alliance, and Nick Clout and his colleagues in South Africa called a pact. And this is not going to be easy, and the governments are not going to assume that they will just be so responsive to advances or proposals from higher education. And this is why I asked higher education, and this effort can be coordinated by national councils of higher education, because many countries in Africa has these national councils of higher education and research for many years. Other countries had them for a shorter period of time, and other countries had other arrangements, but they can coordinate this effort of universities going out and identifying the needs and aspirations of their communities and insisting on playing a role in the formulation of national policies. And that, as I mentioned earlier, requires not only goodwill on the part of the universities, but what I call added value, because the politicians have to be convinced that the universities can give them something which they cannot get anywhere else. And that what the universities can give them is essential for development. Graduates of universities are better off at using technology. They are better off at understanding the new methods of management. And we have seen this happening in Southeast Asia and some countries in Latin America, because quite often we concentrate on the path of development of Western countries, especially for our countries on Britain. And many political scientists consider Britain a very unique case in development, even among European countries. So we need really to look around for more relevant examples which have shown that higher education can deliver for sustainable development. So despite the state of our universities, I think we need to start somewhere. And I'm sure there are a lot of issues in which we can make progress without significant additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that Professor Bakri Osman Said has provided answer to that question by Professor Michael Faborode. The next question is from Professor Vincent Alogun, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic, Edo State University. You have.
Thank you very much, the moderator. Thank you, Professor Bakri. That was a wonderful lecture delivered by you. You mentioned that the few things that African University has to do in order to continue as to reevaluate their contract, governance, and quality of learning. I have 3 questions to ask in that regard, Prof. The first one is, what role is Association of African University playing in ensuring that funding is increased for African universities? You also know that education, society, environment, and economy has to be in symbiosis for a continental development, particularly in Africa. What is your take and role of Association of African Universities in all of this, particularly for sustainable production of new knowledge that you have just defined? And the third one is, yes, over the years, we've been having education tourism, particularly away from Africa. So how do you ensure, using your office this time, to ensure that we mitigate against such tourism and promote retainership of new knowledge that we have created. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, funding is a big issue. And getting actually governments and politicians to agree to something like 3% GDP has been asked before by different gatherings. It is not always easy. And I think universities have to think about, well, they have to keep asking for this percentage of GDP for funding higher education, but they have to think about other innovative ways of increasing funding. I made a proposal for my country some years ago, but it wasn't received with a lot of enthusiasm, that universities have to charge all students, and students who cannot afford the money which the government now gives to universities, they can give to local councils. So students who cannot afford funding can go to their local council for support. Because in many African countries now, you see students who actually go for general education in
We are having a bit of challenge with Professor Bakri responding at his end, but I'm sure that in a short while he will reconnect. While we are waiting for him to reconnect, because we do not want to break the thought, we'll just take a quick interlude as we wait for him, and then if he manages to connect quickly, we'll abort the interlude and continue the questions. Perhaps this is one of the things we need to be strategic about, finding the appropriate technology to drive virtual learning.
Edo University Iyamo, a game changer in academics in Nigeria. Edo University Iyamo, located along Kilometer 7 Auchi Abuja Road, in the serene environment of Iyamo Uzairue in Edo State, was established by the Edo State government and was given recognition by the NUC as the 41st state-owned university in Nigeria in 2016. Owned by the Edo State government, the university is dedicated to finding solutions to critical socio-political and economic challenges and to preparing students for leadership in a dynamic world. The desire of Edo State government for quality education is demonstrated in our investment in what city can boast of modern and advanced technological tools that are not easily available in our country, according to the testimonies of different personalities, dignitaries, and parents who have visited the university recently.
Our goal is to make this university a world-class university, a global university, a university that can compare with anyone outside of this country. So our benchmark is not Nigeria, it's the world. I want that the next rankings, we will see this university being ranked among the best universities on the continent before we go on to the next level.
We found that 70% of the Ivy League universities use Canvas learning management system. Going by global ranking, the 10 best universities in the world, 6 use Canvas learning management system. We then decided that if our standards, or if where we want to be, is where those universities are, then we should put canvas learning management system in place for our students. And that's what we have done.
We have taken a guided tour around the campus, and the facilities are impressive, and they are world class. Our
Yes, I am
projections
here now.
are that in the not too distant future, the university will be a reference point for tertiary education in Nigeria.
We just did a tour of Uzairue University Iyamo, and we've seen a lot of beautiful things, awesome things. You know, I'm very, very proud to be an Edo man today. I was just discussing with the VC. Now I know why all our courses here are accredited so quickly. You know, I've been to universities both in Nigeria and abroad. I'm happy to tell you that what I've seen here today is the best I've ever seen. And I'm highly impressed.
Which is globally acknowledged as the fastest growing LMS with more than 80 million users. Hence, Mr. Vice Chancellor, you and your management have blazed the trail by this singular act.
With the increased presence of the university on the World Wide Web, the stage will be set for improved ranking of the university on national and global league tables. We are now well ranked nationally.
I think
the LMS will have national leverage global ranking.
Union University without doubt, but it's a union university with great potential. But beyond potential, it's a university that has great ideas. It's easy to say that it's a young university, but it is taking on the kind of responsibility that even the older universities are not able to.
We're using simulation technology to train students for achieving the competencies required. Which
Edo University is well suited, well equipped, both with facilities and human beings to train engineers.
I have to be totally honest. I've been to a few universities in Nigeria. This has got to be the most modern university.
At the size scale of the universities, it's very, very big. The facilities are fantastic and beautiful football pitch.
Thank you very much. We apologize for that interlude that we had to bring in as a stopgap because we're having a few challenges at the other end. Now that Professor Bakre Usman Said is back, we would like him to continue to provide response to Professor Balogun's question.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry about that interruption. It was my fault. Yeah, right. The role of African university. I was talking about funding. So we have our elite university, University of Khartoum, for example. Now the majority of students who get to this university come from wealthy families, people who can send their children to very expensive schools where some of them receive one-to-one tuition. And so they end up obviously with better marks in the Sudan school certificate. And when they come to the university, then they come to get free education, university education. And why is that happening? So this is one thing which has to change. So I propose that universities should make an estimate of a cost of education in each discipline, and they charge that to students who cannot afford. They should go and get grants or loans from the government. The second thing is universities can run parallel private classes. Another thing is investment. It didn't work for all universities in Sudan, but one of the universities has got a program of working students. So they have a big farm and a couple of small factories, and they had students actually working in those factories, and they get paid as well. So students make some money towards their tuition fees, and at the same time, university makes profit out of those ventures. we talk about consultancies, but there are few in our in Africa, and they tend to go for individuals. So, but university, well, can take overheads, of course. And so, yes, we need to think for funding sources beyond the government contribution, because I do not expect in the present economic climate in most African countries that the contribution of the government is going to increase significantly. Although, if we succeed in creating that alliance, development alliance with the government, then some of the funds which are going somewhere else might come to universities. The second question is about the symbiosis between the different dimensions of development, and education is going to be useful within a certain environment. And this is, I think, is extremely important. And we are only going to achieve that through this alliance with government and other stakeholders, like especially industry. So if universities can take the lead and forge such an alliance and prove to their stakeholders that they can offer value to what those people are doing, that's a way to create this coordination, because this coordination of symbiosis is extremely important for effective role of education in sustainable development. And then the most difficult question about generating new knowledge, and in my opinion, well, there is a experiment of centers of excellence, research universities, or identifying research groups or individuals who've already achieved some breakthroughs, and support them, give them further support, and make them the main route for new knowledge production. Well, all these schemes have been tried, but we have to be careful here that this is carried out in the most transparent and scientific and fair way. Because if you are going to select certain universities, and these are usually flagship universities, it could be the first post-independence university or before independence, and pile resources on these universities, bring the best academics, the best researchers to those universities. You've got to tie that up with output, because otherwise this system is open to, again, criticism. It can be open to abuse as well, where people can use their contacts and whatever to get into those prestigious institutions. Centers of excellence, again, we have to be very careful. We have to design these centers very well and make sure that we're getting the right people, we're getting the right topics, we're getting the right support, and they have to be really accountable as well. So if a center of excellence doesn't deliver, it cannot keep on asking for a special treatment. Educational tourism. I was speaking to the Malaysian Prime Minister, a former Malaysian Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the guy who actually built modern Malaysia. Because when I was teaching in the UK, I noticed that Malaysia sends thousands of students to study there. Not like other third world countries who send students for postgraduate education. Most of their students actually are university students, undergraduate students. And I asked him, why did they do that? His answer to me was, said, listen, I realize that we can only change our circumstances by education and by good quality education. Good quality education has to have standards. And I realized, he said at that time, that Malaysia does not have sufficient expertise to come up with those standards. So I decided to adopt the British standards. We benefited, he said, from the Germans in technical and vocational education. And he said, then we've decided to send thousands of our young graduates to study in the UK. Well, I'm not saying that's a right thing or ideal, but it's just one opinion of somebody who has succeeded actually in transforming his country. Education tourism, people will continue to send their children abroad because they feel they are getting better education and they are more likely to get jobs in developed countries than if they train them back at home. And I mean, this is a minority of people, and I don't want us to be really distracted by this practice because you know what happens. Sometimes when you talk about development universities, some people straight away saying, "Well, you want to take us out of the global community of universities. We are not going to have world-class universities that way. We are not going to compete globally that way." No, but that is not true. No, a development university does not mean a second-class university. And in fact, you can do research on very practical issues, and you will be exploring very advanced scientific ideas in the process. I carried out research in collaboration with American, Danish, and British collaborators when I was in Sudan trying to develop a vaccine for malaria. But that research generated really very basic facts and very innovative ideas about how the parasite interacts with red blood cells and abnormal hemoglobins and that sort of thing. So you can always marry actually this intellectual exercise, but this time you are directing it to a solution of a specific problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Bakri Usman Said. We recognize that there are many more people who want to ask questions, but unfortunately, we are not able to take all the questions. But the good news is that this lecture will be provided for everybody that has logged in. We'll provide a link, and you can download the lecture and read it, and the conversation continues outside of this forum. I want to thank all of you who have asked questions and those whose questions we have not been able to attend to. Time usually is not a friend of anybody, and so we'd like to move quickly to some other parts of this program. We would like to take a few goodwill messages. There are not many. And then after that, we will go into His Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, to give his brief remarks. But before we do that, we'd like to recognize, welcome, and salute the Vice Chancellor, Covenant University, Professor Abiodun Adebayo, who is logged on and has been with us since the lecture commenced. We want to also take goodwill messages from him too, that's Professor Adebayo, Vice Chancellor, Covenant University, and the Acting Vice Chancellor of ABUAD, Afe Babalola University, Ado-Ekiti, and from Professor Michael Faborode, is astute friends of the university, and we thank you for identifying with us. Thank you very much. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished guest speaker, we'd like to move on quickly to the visitor to this university. Okay, so we'll take we have a bit of time, 2 minutes, to take these goodwill messages. And so we'll take the goodwill messages from Professor Abiodun Adebayo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I want to recognize the protocol that has been established here today and to congratulate the Vice Chancellor, Professor Emmanuel Aluyo, and the members of the Senate and management, faculty, and staff, and all of the graduating class in this third convocation of Edo State University, Uzairue. I want to especially congratulate my president, the president of Association of African Universities, Professor Bakri Said, for that excellent delivery. Thank you so much. I really followed you while you were making your presentation. And to congratulate once again the achievement of Edo State University over the years. And in a short time, this university has really done so well. And I'm impressed with your achievement, especially with your ranking at the Times Higher Education Impact Ranking. When you click that, you will see Edo State University. As young as you are able to meet up with that impact ranking that ranks SDG. Thank you for doing a wonderful job, and I want to commend.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You are so intentional in your approach and in driving excellence. And Covenant University on this day, on behalf of the Chancellor and Chairman Board of Regents, Dr. David Oyedepo, felicitate with you on your third convocation ceremony. I want to see how many more universities in Nigeria and Africa indeed will also be intentional in the global ranking that is ongoing, because that's the only way we can all be recognized. And Professor Said, thank you so much. And I recognize the visitor and also the members of council here present today, Dr. Alexander Ogedengbe. Thank you so much for your excellent speeches today. Thank you, and I rejoice with you once again. And do have a wonderful time. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not often that you find a masquerade tender praising and acknowledging the good work of yet another masquerade tender. It just shows how much work is going on at Edo State University and how much more work the administrators of this place are working. More, as they say, jelly to your elbow. Oh, at this point, take the goodwill message from Professor Faboride, former Vice Chancellor OAU and former Secretary of the Conference of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. Professor Faboride, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very glad to identify with Edo State University on this great occasion, especially for bringing such a very great personality to deliver the third convocation lecture. And he has really done justice to the subject. I wish him and the AAU leadership success in implementing the strategic plan that should be able to set things right for Africa. Edo State University has shown giant strides, and we are very pleased with the development that is taking place, the leadership that is being provided by the current Vice Chancellor. And we look forward to the fact that this trend will continue. So I rejoice with you, and I congratulate you and the distinguished lecturer for this occasion. Thank you very much. Let me also congratulate the chairman for the occasion, the president of the Academy of Engineering, Engineer Alexander Ogedegbe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Edo State University Uzairue is certainly the wraith and toast of the moment, and we believe that it will continue to be so. We'd like to take the third goodwill message from the acting Vice Chancellor of Afe Babalola University, Professor Olarinde. Thank you, sir. I think he may not be here, even though it's still locked down. Just a she. I apologize. These men always think that they must be men. She is not currently able to do this. But we thank you for your intention and your indication to give this goodwill message. Okay, now she's here. Thank you. At this point, we'll go to the visitor of the university, His Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Ogase Obaseki, who is very ably represented by the Commissioner for Education, Dr. Jane Osa Oviawe, Joanne, I beg your pardon, Osa Oviawe, who has been with us all day and is ready to speak to this august gathering. Our visitor, you have the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by really acknowledging the Vice Chancellor, Professor Aluyo, and his team and the members of the Council of the University of Edo University, Uzairue. I want to thank you most sincerely for your effort, for your commitment to excellence as exhibited today, even by the caliber and quality of people you have invited to your third convocation lecture. On behalf of the Edo State government, I acknowledge the wonderful lecture of Professor Usman, and particularly the topic is very timely. Discussing the role of African universities in African development is a very crucial one, and aligns well with the vision of our own governor, His Excellency Governor Godwin Obaseki, in terms of transforming our education system from basic to tertiary. African universities indeed have a strong role to play in leapfrogging the continent, the countries of the continent, towards sustainable development. And in Edo State, we are looking to our own tertiary institutions, particularly Edo State University, Uzairue, in light of the forward-thinking capability of the Vice Chancellor to be that hub of knowledge production and knowledge dissemination, to be that hub that creates opportunity between town and gown to ensure that there is economic growth, that the activities, the knowledge production, the knowledge economy of the university translates into creating opportunities for expansion and economic growth for Edo State. So we are very, very excited to see what is going on at Edo University. We appreciate the Vice Chancellor, the faculty members, the students, and the community that supports this institution. And I would say that you have already started off on a very good path, on a very strong note, and the expectations for you and the university is a very high one. And we have no doubt that you will meet and exceed these expectations. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow at the ceremony proper. And Professor Usman, again, thank you so, so much. And I'm hoping that your lecture will be available, because I really do want to, I listened, I want to go back in my quiet moment to read over it again and reflect. Lots of nuggets of really useful and wonderful information that will be that anybody in the education sector should really mule over. I also acknowledge the chairman of this event. Prof, thank you very much. Thank you for your support, and all the colleagues from other universities that have showed up digitally to support VC and the Edo University Uzairue community. Thank you all so much.
We'd like to thank the visitor, ably represented by the Commissioner for Education, Dr. Joan Uzairue, who has discharged very creditably on her assignment this afternoon. I'd like to assure you that when you visit, what you are hearing now will just be a tip of the iceberg. What you see, you would know, and what you know is what you would see. I'd like to thank you. As for the lecture, it's going to be available in the next 5 minutes. A link will be created, and you can download that lecture at your convenience and read it also at your convenience. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very wonderful exercise. We cannot wrap this up without asking our very ebullient and able registrar, who is the custodian of the books, the works, and the values of our university, to say a word of gratitude. And after that, we will do the closing formalities, which include the university anthem, and then we will take the national anthem thereafter. At this point, let me welcome the registrar to give his vote of thanks.
I stand on existing protocols. On behalf of our world-class university Vice Chancellor, management, staff, and students of Edo State University, we will specially thank our visitor, ably represented by our amiable Commissioner of Education. We want to appreciate the guest speaker. He have said it all, and you heard from the visitor to the university, especially thanking you. So I would like to add that the university appreciates all your input, those announced and those aware by the management. May God bless you immensely for the time you have shared with us. For the chairman of the occasion, Engineer Professor Alex Ogedegbe, the president of Nigeria Academic of Engineering, we are grateful. May God reward you. For the chairman, we really appreciate your charismatic way you have chairman this occasion. We want to especially appreciate all serving vice chancellors that gave goodwill message and others that participated in this, our third convocation lecture. We wish you the best as you are partners in progress. The vice chancellors and registrars that log in, we appreciate. Specifically, special appreciation goes to Comrade Adams Oshomole, the founder and first visitor to this university, for continually taking interest to ensure that the university grew from strength to strength. We will want to appreciate all the academia all over the nation and all the ministers that have participated in this, representative of the Minister of Works and that of the Minister of Health. Thank you and God bless. At this junction, our Vice Chancellor, our
PACE award-winning Vice Chancellor, we want to thank you. John, the visitor to the university, to thank you so that you continue the good work you are doing as an award-winning Vice Chancellor, a pace setter, and a commendable achiever in the educational industry. Thank you very much. God bless. Dear Registrar, for being very eloquent and for the encomium that you have heaped on your Vice Chancellor and everybody who has participated in this event. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, as the popular parlance goes, whatever has a beginning would have an end. And so I want to thank everybody that has logged in. Before we log off, we want to do the university anthem. And after that, we will do honor to our country, Nigeria, by singing the national anthem. And that will be the end of the event for today. But we now sing the university anthem. Thank you, everybody. We acknowledge your great role and we commend everybody here to God's able hand. Thank you. See you tomorrow at the convocation program.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very grateful. We'll see you tomorrow at the convocation.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
is a world of modern equipment only comparable. Welcome to Edo State University Uzairue, home of modern teaching and learning, a center of excellent pedagogy. Edo State University Uzairue is a world of modern teaching equipment only comparable to Ivy League universities overseas. These equipment are found in our laboratories, workshops, and studios. One of such equipment is the anatomist table. Would you like to know more about anatomist table? Sure, you will. Anatomist table is the most technologically advanced 3D anatomy visualization and visual dissection tool for anatomy and physiology education, adopted and used by world-leading medical institutions and schools.
On this menu, we have different parts or different aspects that we use this table to teach us. We have the aspect or the fold that called gross anatomy. We have other aspects called regional anatomy. Here we have the body already arranged in regions. As you can see, we have head and neck, brain, eye, ear. So if, for example, I want to teach just the brain, so I don't need to go about opening the full body. I'll just go and open the brain. Then also we have physiology. One good thing about this page is that with time, we keep getting updates. And this recent update is with some physiological features.
This modern equipment contains radiology software and clinical contents that distinguishes it from other imaging systems. The anatomist table is the only fully segmented real human anatomy system. Users can visualize anatomy exactly the flow of human anatomy beyond what any cadaver could offer.
First layer that we can see generally in human body, the skin. And if you take off the skin, you have a covering of the skin, facial, not showing them, but after that you have muscles. And since the muscles are showing, the muscles is showing, and you can actually control the resolution and focus on the aspect that you want to focus on. So if our focus now is on the upper limb, and I want to teach muscles of the upper limb.
Dear parents, guardians, you can now see why Edo State University prides itself as a world-class university. Do well to tell others about us. Edo State University, we develop leaders. Edo State University Uzairue, formerly Edo University Iyamo, prides itself as a world-class university. Without doubt, the university has made giant strides in the educational sector within the last few years of its existence. At Edo State University Uzairue, our world-class venture is in many facets. We operate student-centered curricula across the 7 faculties and 19 departments currently in the university. I am sure you want to know more about our student-centered curricula. Alright, student-centered curricula emphasize on student-centered learning, where students are trained in theory and in practicals. Regular assignments are given, monitored and evaluated by lecturers in their various laboratories, workshops and studios. As a digital world-class university, our student-centered curricula are also designed into Canvas learning management system that enables parents and guardians monitor the progress of their students and world. Edo State University student-centered curricula take different nomenclature based on the peculiarity of the college, faculty, and programs. At the College of Medicine, it is called competency-based curriculum.
Okay, we have a very unique curriculum. This curriculum is a new one in Nigeria. It's a curriculum that is being operated by prominent College of Medical Sciences all over the world.
The faculty operates a competency-based curriculum and a student-centered learning process.
At the Faculty of Engineering, the curriculum is called outcome-based engineering curriculum.
As regards to the Faculty of Engineering here in Edo State University Uzairue, we operate an outcome-based educational curriculum, which is the most recent curriculum Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria are trying to introduce into the engineering discipline in Nigeria.
Edo State University is one of the 4 universities in Nigeria used for the pilot project of this curriculum by the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. In the Faculty of Arts, Management and Social Sciences, it is called Student Center Curriculum.
Under this curriculum, students are active participants in the learning superstructure. It encourages the student to locate their passion and paths in the learning process. It assists all students to be on the same page. It take them explaining concepts and precepts to their own understanding. It brings the complex issues. It makes complex issues simpler to the understanding of students. And here students, they participate in learning. It's a kind of a participation. It gives a cause for holistic participation in the learning process.
At Edo State University Uzairue, we develop leaders.